28. Tyrannical power has limits. April 6, 1943. My German friends. The news reports of the last weeks confirm the beautiful statement of Schiller. Tyrannical power has limits. We hear of Belgian bishops protesting against slave labor. We hear that the Norwegians have blown up a munitions factory. We hear of the heroic struggle of the Russian partisans. Here, the limits of tyrannical power are visible everywhere. And these limits are also visible inside Germany. German students have been shot dead because they have spread pamphlets against the destroyers of Germany, the National Socialists. Never in world history has there been a machine of oppression that amounted to the National Socialist one. From the Gestapo to the bomber, a system appeared to be created without gaps, spiritually and physically. Everything was seized by the servants of tyranny. And yet the instruments of tyranny were inadequate. The greatest system of oppression that humankind has created is creaking at its joints. It is destroying itself according to the law under which it exists. Tyranny is not, like authentic rule, born by the will of those who are subject to it. For that reason, tyranny must constantly break the resistance of those who threaten its rule. Thus, growing terror is emerging, more and more refined, brutal, and unsuccessful. The tyranny of tyrants must become more intense to hold out, until a point comes when it will go on no more. When it sees everyone as suspicious, when those who were instruments of tyranny yesterday have become its victims today, then the tyranny breaks down within itself. When Russia was attacked, because there could be no hold for the conquering tyranny, the law of the limits of every tyranny came into force. The conqueror is a part of the whole, which destroys itself when it desires to rise above the whole. It is astonishing to see with what blindness the German tyrants carried out the law of their self-destruction. Tyrannical power has limits, because it develops forces of self-destruction, and it has limits because humanity is created for freedom. Where does that tenacious resistance of the Dutch, the Serbs, and the French saboteurs come from? Think about German history. There was a time when Germany was subject to the French conqueror, and Germans fought against the Napoleonic tyranny as saboteurs. The German freedom fighters have been glorified in all German schools, and now the European nations are following this example. But they are following it against the tyrants of today, the Germans. My German friends, have you never asked why the same thing should be seen as heroic when you are doing it against others and criminal when others are doing it against you? They, the subjugated nations, will continue to fight until they have achieved their freedom. But everyone who dies in this battle dies for humankind, even for the German people, because the German person also wants freedom, although he has been degraded to being first a slave and then a slave owner. I would imagine that in the depth of your soul, something rejoices when you hear of the heroic deeds of the European freedom fighters. Didn't we passionately sympathize in our youth when we read of the freedom heroes of foreign nations? Certainly, you cannot hear of the freedom struggle of the Europeans without the painful feeling that the battle is directed against your nation. You sense the complete tragedy that National Socialism has brought on the German nation, because you realize that the best in your inner self resonates with the freedom heroes of your enemies. I would like the German nation to learn something for the entire future from this revolution of freedom, that humanity is created for freedom and that brutal power must destroy itself. Certainly Germany became the first victim of National Socialism, but certainly not entirely without its own guilt. It lacked the respect for human freedom. It lacked the will to devote itself to the struggle against dictatorship. There was too much worship of power, too much idolatry of authority. The revolution of freedom has begun. Go with it, my German friends. Stop being instruments of tyranny. Free yourselves. Then you will be free. Even when the armies of oppression are routed, the revolution of freedom has begun. Take part in it. You, the first victims of tyranny.